Travis Winggood Cell. I was recognizing a slowing of the number of views for the subsequent videos of this series, and so I thought I'd check analytics, and the list and order of the Latter-day Signs in heaven is well over, well, it's not well over, it's over 1,000. 1,128, I believe, was the number they said. And the analytics said that the majority of people who are not linking from my old video to this one are doing a YouTube search of LDS last days. So I've changed the title of each of those videos, and it'll still be in the same playlist under the same title, but we'll see if that draws more people's attention. Because my other option was to do a video about how Mormons believe the lie rather than getting a testimony of the truth. And so I would hate to think that Mormons don't believe in their Book of Mormon. So we're now at chapter 2, and Lehi has just departed, and he's at the top of the Red Sea. Now, the Red Sea in the King James Version is where Moses parted the Red Sea. It's actually the Reed Sea, which in Egyptian is the afterlife. So, yes, the story of Moses is a prophecy of the latter days and not an actual history, as Jews even think. Christians think the Gospels are a real history. Jews think the Torah is real history. They're all apocalyptic literature of the latter days. But we have the famous verse that all Mormons miss. If you've watched any videos, if you've heard any people comment on this leaving Jerusalem, all Mormons make the mistake of including Nephi in this first Exodus pattern. I will read it to you, and pay attention for the name Nephi, or the pronoun I and my family, something like that. And he came down by the borders near the shore of the Red Sea, and he traveled in the wilderness in the borders which are nearer the Red Sea, and he did travel in the wilderness with his family, which consisted of my mother Sariah and my elder brothers, who were Laman, Lemuel, and Sam. Remember, he's doing an abridgment of the record of his father. No Nephi, not even as a baby. And so after Lehi dwelt in a tent, all of a sudden Nephi begins his record, talking about his experiences with his family. And so we have the comparable passage with the Exodus, as I went over before, parting of the Red Sea. And notice there is no parting of any seas here. He's just by the Red Sea after he has exodused from Jerusalem. In this situation, he was being bullied and mocked and given death threats by his own religion, by the people of his own religion, and so God told him to leave. This is a unique Exodus in that the majority of the Exoduses in the Book of Mormon conform with the Exoduses elsewhere, where destruction is involved with the Exodus. And so this is unique. for this passage, for this pattern. And then we get to he's in a valley, and so by a river of water, and so he attaches the names of his sons, Laman and Lemuel, because they're not being good. Just like the house of Israel, the children of Israel. So Lehi is now in the role of Israel with his wicked children, which Isaiah and Jeremiah go all over the place condemning the house of Israel, the children of Israel. And so this same pattern is portrayed here in the Book of Mormon of Laman and Lemuel being the older brethren, the older brothers, but not complying with their birthright and blessing. Laman specifically as the firstborn birthright blessing son who is supposed to take over the throne, the tribal family throne. And this plays in a dichotomous dualism throughout the Book of Mormon as we get Lamanites and Nephites, the two different ones. The one that was supposed to have the birthright, but it gets usurped by his brother because of Laman's wickedness. And so, yeah, they're condemning Lehi for being a visionary man. You know, you had a dream, that's why we're leaving our gold and our silver and our nice home and our friends who, you know, crime is not a crime, reality isn't real, truth isn't true. That's, you know, they said they were righteous and led them out of the land of Jerusalem to leave the land of their inheritance and their gold and their silver and their precious things to perish in the wilderness. Whiners. And this they had done because of the foolish imaginations of his heart. Visions are not the heart, but notice how they twist it. They do not anything to do with the Lord. Okay. And here in 13, they did not believe that Jerusalem, remember this is the original Jerusalem that was destroyed by Babylon, that had put the puppet king on the throne, and the temple is destroyed, the religion is destroyed, which is headquartered in Jerusalem. And they thought it would never be destroyed. We were promised with the prophecy of the previous Melchizedeks on the throne of Jerusalem that this will be for all eternity, especially last throughout the millennium. Sound familiar, Mormons? The great city could not be destroyed according to the words of the prophets, because the prophets were all saying, hey, it's going to be destroyed. And Lehi was one of them. He saw it in the dream. And Laman and Lemuel did not believe that such a thing would be possible, even though they had witnessed Babylon coming in, taking over, replacing the king with Zedekiah, a puppet king for Babylon. And they still refused to believe. And they, you know, Jeremiah goes over the level of wickedness of the people in Jerusalem. It is horrifying. And to think that that's what Laman and Lemuel are thinking is good, that there's nothing wrong with what they were doing. They were like unto the Jews who were at Jerusalem, who sought to take away the life of my father. And yeah, when you can justify your actions, which would result in the murder of somebody, you don't see life any other way. Okay, let's see. Yep, there it is, 15. And my father dwelt in a tent, and then it came to pass, I, Nephi, being exceedingly young. Yeah. Because if this were a true history, Mormons, 11 years from the time that Babylon put Zedekiah on the throne to the time that Babylon came in and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple and took everybody captive into Babylon. Well, the rich elite people. And then they were taken to Ur of Babylon, where they had a segregated community of buildings there, as we found records from that location. They try to say he was large in stature, and having desired to know the mysteries of God, the temple. Nephi has not been able to go into the temple as a result, and be initiated to become hereafter king and a queen, high priest and high priestess, with the washing and anointings. So we'll stop there, because my father dwelt in a tent is the end of pattern number 1 for the Exodus. And now with Nephi, we're starting a whole nother pattern. Nephi now becomes the one being set up to be like Moses, like the Christ of the latter days, because he starts off as a child, the man-child of John's Revelation chapter 12, who will rule the world. And he does, but it's the group called the Nephites in the pattern, using the same names and such. So that ends the first pattern with these 4 segments. Technically 5 with the introduction, because that covered the first couple of paragraphs or chapters. And we are done. Oh, Lehi, if I haven't told you, means jawbone. So the word